सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। Dear Swami Sarvasthanand Ji Maharaj, dear Swami Japa Siddhananda Ji, and the assembled devotees. Of course, this London Center is one of my most favorite centers in that sense that I really love coming here. So I don't miss any opportunity. Whenever I come to Europe, I stay at least for a couple of days. Because Dayatmanji also I knew very well, for many, many years. Somehow he was close to me, although he's much senior. And Sarvasthanji is all sweetness, although I have diabetes still. So it's a great pleasure to be in his company and to spend time with him. That way is very extremely, it's not just hospitality, it is far beyond that. That is his nature. So it's a very beautiful place, beautiful atmosphere. This shrine is a real place where we should really practice and learn meditation. We don't have to study, we don't have to listen to talks. Just sit here every day, spend at least 1 hour each in the morning and evening. Maybe in 5-6 months' time, you'll really get to know what real meditation means, and then you can go deeper on that. So he was talking about the educational work, and the topic that is given, education, is that by which the mind is really transformed, and that's what Swami Vivekananda says. So exactly how we are trying to bring about this change in students through what type of education, that maybe tomorrow, if there is time, we will just talk about it. Today we will deal more directly with the classical subject itself, the real need for meditation and what are the techniques. Some of it we will discuss, and maybe we'll finish off tomorrow. We'll complete the discussions. First, to begin with, what exactly is the need for meditation? Of course, in this world, as Bhagavan Buddha said, dukkha is something absolutely unavoidable. Whatever might be the external facade, every family, everywhere, even to some extent, wherever there is anything that is happening, even if you go to other places, even voluntary organizations, NGOs, everywhere, there is this underlying unhappiness, dukkha, suffering, sorrow, etc., which can never be avoided. These are all integral part of life. Whatever one might do, whatever might be one's position in life, education, background, family circumstances, everything. Quite often, in an unknown and unannounced manner, this dukkha and suffering, they come and engulf our life, so to say. So what exactly is the way? Because we have found that people with enormous amount of wealth, much of the corporate wars that you see in countries like India and several other places, it's often between individuals having unbelievable amount of wealth. And quite often their siblings are father and son. So it's very clear money has not really brought that kind of happiness or satisfaction or deep fulfillment in life. Similarly, our education, our background and other things. So what is the way? Is it really possible? How to overcome and all that? They say that the only way is by meditation. Because through meditation, one can really access one's real nature. It is the ultimate reality or the ultimate goal of life, where there is a direct approach, a direct contact. So these are terms which we use because of the inadequacy of the language. They cannot be truly expressed completely. But then for the sake of understanding, we have to use a language. So in that sense, only through that, where we have a capacity to access the ultimate, the real truth, the finality. Through that only all this can be conquered. So that is why meditation is so very important. And not only the reason being dukkha, suffering, etc. There's also another aspect why meditation is an integral part of life or what is the need for it. That's because through meditation or in meditation, we really access our ultimate nature, ultimate truth, ultimate reality. There is an inherent urge in every individual. Even the most restless person, quite often, youngsters, they come virtually running. I'm just walking somewhere. Swamiji, I want to learn meditation. So, there is an inherent urge, probably in every individual, expressed and unexpressed, to go to their depth or to touch their real nature. Ramakrishna gives a very beautiful example. The context might have been slightly different, but then the example is very valid. A salt doll went to measure the depth of the ocean. It got into it and got completely dissolved, and it could not really come back to give any information about the depth. So, meaning thereby that when you are closest to a reality, closer and closer you approach, that's where you get really absorbed, and that's why there is all the cessation of sorrow, suffering, etc. All that happen. So, from both points of view, one is to the need to get rid of sorrow, suffering, pain, so many other kinds of evils of our existential life. And also because intrinsically there's an urge in every individual to reach or experience or touch that ultimate reality which is inherent to ourselves, which is our very nature, that is often there. So these probably the two things. Perhaps many of you might have heard of him. There was a great uh, Austrian doctor by name Viktor Frankl. He survived the concentration camp. He went on to discover a new philosophy, a new idea of psychology called logotherapy. There he says, even in the concentration camp, those with a spiritual bent of mind seem to perform better. The rate of survival was better, he says, from his observation. He managed to survive, and he spent a number of years, and he also virtually went through very terrifying experiences, was about to be killed and so on and so forth. Because he was a doctor, somehow he was also used for treating some of the patients, and finally he managed to survive. So he says, there also, this is where that was his finding. And also, apart from all that, this death poses a huge question before all of us. What is it? How to conquer death? Everyone wants to live for eternity. No one wants to die. But all of us, we know that death is a certainty. Back to the famous Yaksha Prashna of Mahabharata, when Yudhishthira was asked what's the greatest wonder, he said people see others dying, yet they think that they will live forever. So he quoted or stated this is the greatest wonder on earth. So this is again another, not only that, what happens after that? Where do we go? What would happen once I die? These questions, all that cannot be answered at the existential level at all. Because unless we really understand the absolutely impermanent or temporary nature of our body, mind, etc., that there is a state of existence is beyond all that, unless that is very clear in our minds, we will never be able to overcome the fear of death or the idea of what would happen beyond that. Once you realize that true nature, then you are not bothered either about dying or about whatever is going to happen when this body falls off. So all that are completely sidelined. So how it is overcome? Because at the highest levels of meditation, when one accesses one's true nature, and when one understands that it's beyond death, beyond sorrow, beyond suffering, of an infinite nature, that's the real true nature, then all these things go by the wayside, and all these problems are kind of overcome. So there are several traditions of meditation. Probably you know what exactly is this meditation. Basically, we can try to understand this question also. This is the goal of life is direct perception, aparoksha anubhuti, not through anybody else, not an indirect experience, direct experience, ultimate experience. And this is possible according to scriptures, according to those who are great practitioners and all that. It's possible only through what is called a great meditative awareness. So in this, when they say that the approach towards the ultimate, whatever is the ultimate thing, ultimate truth, ultimate knowledge, to gain that, because some other approaches are also sometimes attempted, but they are not really very successful, because it's not through any, only through reasoning or only through emotions, and these things have never been found very successful at all. So that is why they say that one has to take to meditation if one is to really go to the highest level. And also our ancients, they also devise certain method. They say that the scriptures, positive reasoning, and also the experience, all these three should go in the same direction. All these should lead to the same truth. Otherwise, there will be self-deception. Quite often, people, very often we get such information, such confessions, people coming and saying they got this, they got that, they saw this, they saw that, and so many kinds of visions and so on and so forth. Many of which might be self-deceptions. They may not be true at all. So it has to be put to these three tests, namely, what is the script? Whether are they according to the scriptures, which is really the repository of ancient wisdom, and then through positive reasoning, and also through experience. If all point towards the same truth or the same ultimate goal, then it is perfectly okay. Otherwise, the other methods like unquestioning faith. Unquestioning faith, it's okay. Up to a certain level, it can take you. But then if something happens to completely shatter one's life, then faith completely gives way. It doesn't stand that test. So reasoning also, dry reasoning, again, up to a certain level, it's possible. Again, that has also failures beyond that point. See, the point is, when certain incidents happen, which completely seem to change everything in your life, they are totally kind of shattering experiences. All these things largely fail. Emotion, yes, that's also an approach, but then it can quite often lead you into the dark alleys of some unknown areas which are not really desirable. So that's why, considering all that, finally this meditation was accepted as the one thing that would lead us to the kind of highest goal and the reality. Basically, if you try to understand what exactly is the meaning of this word meditation, we can very briefly say that it's concentration of the highest level, because normally concentration is definitely not meditation, but concentration is definitely an integral part of the process with which we begin or which we start the journey, etc., etc. Because as someone put it, virtually everyone in the world meditates, because all knowledge is got ultimately through concentration. So concentration is, maybe you can say that the beginning or the preliminary stages of meditation. So in a sense that everybody really meditates, you can say, whosoever gains any knowledge or succeeds in any area, anywhere, everywhere this idea is there. So in a sense, so only when is directed towards a particular goal, namely to find out one's own real nature or the ultimate, then only that gains a different kind of a color or a definition or idea, etc. Meditation is to clearly understand it's not any process or kriya or ritual or action or anything. It's awareness of the highest order. In meditation, one becomes aware of one's own true nature. Again, these are all very vague terms which we use, and unless one really practices for a long period, it's really not possible to get to the depths of all that. One youngster went to Sri Ramakrishna and told him, in meditation are we not supposed to go beyond mind? But then he also quoted the scriptural sloka, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha, where the speech and mind come back unable to comprehend and approach. And Sri Ramakrishna didn't really encourage much in that direction. He said, it's all okay. Unless you really do intense sadhana, how will you understand all that? It's not possible. So, the concentration is probably something like what in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra they call as dharana, stage prior to dhyana. It where the intense concentration or the cohesion or the collection of our mind. So it ultimately where slowly the mind or a particular thought in the mind starts flowing effortlessly towards the object, the culmination being finally total absorption or samadhi. That's the final culmination of what is called meditation. And then it is cannot be called as even contemplation, because contemplation is just thinking of in a particular manner in a deeper way. Probably that is what we call as contemplation. So we should also clearly understand the difference, how not only difference, how thinking, we start with thinking, because in any meditation, any effort, whatever we do, the first thing we start is using the mind to think. So from that, how does it go to a level which is beyond that? That is the real secret of understanding meditation or practicing it or achieving it. Of all the instruments that nature has given us, or God has given us, or what we have been gifted with, mind is the most powerful instrument that we know of. There is nothing more powerful available to us beyond mind. But if you talk of meditation, and if you say that it reaches and goes to or achieves or settles, realizes, experiences, whatever word you might use, the highest, obviously it cannot be mind, because mind is most fickle and subject to changes every second, every microsecond it keeps changing. But that is something, an unchanging, everlasting, birthless, deathless, eternal, immortal entity or truth. Obviously it is not that. So when we start the idea, say about thinking, in meditation, it is necessary to progress from this idea of thinking to a transcendental level or a higher level of awareness, whereby this mind is kind of left behind. And this transition, those who have been practitioners for years, who have really achieved great results and experiences, they clearly say that this is not something which is done through just effort alone. Constantly one might practice. When it happens seamlessly, absolutely beyond one's comprehension. One suddenly finds that one has transcended into that state of awareness. That's what those who have had great experiences, how they experience it. An analogy which may not exactly match, but then it will supposing during this rocket launch, all that is, everything on earth is within the grasp or the power of the earth's that orbit only. The accretion, the capacity to pull, that is that within that. But at certain point, it breaks free and goes beyond. In a small way, you can compare it like that. Up to a certain level, as we keep on struggling with our thoughts, which keep gushing in various ways and so on, through intense practice, there are so many other disciplines extra involved in that, all of that today, tomorrow, we'll try to see it to a certain extent. Then certainly at one point of time, it's possible it kind of takes off, quite unaware even to the practitioner. And then at that stage, the meditation, everything there kind of merge into one unitary oneness. And that kind of experience is what our elders, senior Swamis and great practitioners, what they share. But much of all this discussion is actually sharing of the experiences of the elders, not that we have ourselves experienced all that. So, meditation actually, that's why when you think of this level, this transcendence from this mind, normally what we understand as a mind is just at the surface level. Below that, at a much deeper level, there are hundreds of other states which are absolutely without any ripple, undisturbed by anything, any restlessness or whatever it is. So, the transition from the mind to a different level of transcendence, that is like going to the deeper level of the mind and experiencing that. Actually, if the meditation is to really succeed, this is one of the essential things that is to be achieved, namely going from the absolutely surface level of the mind to something far deeper, where there is absolutely no ripples, no waves, nothing. The mind is absolutely calm. That way. See, this also mind, that's also mind. There's a huge qualitative difference between these two. So if you are always just at the surface, constantly subject to all the changes, all the vagaries, all the restlessness, all thoughts and all that, but then at the deep inner level, as one goes deeper and deeper, the deepest level is absolute calmness. There is nothing to disturb. And that is the kind of level of transcendence or which one is supposed to achieve in true meditation, at the state of true meditative awareness, so to say. To put it a little further, this ego or I consciousness that so thoroughly dominates our life. Whatever we do, everything is known and understood in terms of that one. I did this, I did that, this is mine, I have to do this, I have to. Repeatedly, every second we keep on using this I only. But yet, we know through our own logic, intelligence, understanding that it's absolutely transient. It has no real validity or substance as such. It's just like a highly luminous object, a reflection of a highly luminous object has no independent existence of its own. Every second it depends on the reflected object for its own further changes or modifications or what. Same way, the mind, the I also has, it keeps on changing. It depends upon so many other aspects, so many other factors for its own existence, for its own understanding, everything. So what happens perhaps in meditation is the migration of the I, which normally stays only at the superficial or the surface level of the mind, it transmigrates into a deeper and deeper level. So in the meditation, One of the tasks of the mind, one of the eye consciousness is to kill itself. It has to go away completely. So by going deeper and realizing at such a level, then through intense practice, through other techniques, etc., it goes and accesses or reaches such levels, higher and higher levels, then where it finds its true depth, true meaning, true existence, etc., etc. Probably we'll talk about it in more detail tomorrow. This is just to give you the difference between contemplation, dharana, and just thinking, and as against that, what exactly this meditation is about. So ultimately the culmination of all this should be in the meditation. There will be completely deep absorption into finally what is called samadhi. That's what the highest level of meditation. Now, essentially, if you talk about the techniques, it's really the mastery over the mind. Mind we are using to go deeper, to explore, to find out. But ultimately, the mind itself has to be mastered. Because quite often, the mind is compared to so many things by so many others. Swami Vivekananda gives a beautiful comparison. He says it's like a monkey which is fully drunk and over and above that has been smitten by a scorpion. You can understand how restless it can be. So he says that is the mind that we have. So this has to be really mastered. That then only it's possible to go deeper into what is called meditation. So quite often, particularly many of our senior sadhus are asked by even very senior devotees. It has been there, even if you see in the conversations with the Raja Maharaj, Ramakrishna, many others, even good serious devotees come and ask, why are we not able to realize God? What's happening? Why are we practicing for so many years, so many years? So again, they are told because unless you prepare yourself, unless there is purification of the mind, Ramakrishna says one devotee, actually God is supposed to reside in our hearts. Ramakrishna directly ask him, supposing if your heart is so full of dirt and squalor and all that, how can I go and sit there? Meaning thereby, unless one has purified oneself, has gone through all that intense disciplines. That's why they say in our tradition also, meditation is advised only at a much later stage. Usually they say, yes, you think of your Ishta largely. In fact, Mahapurushas and others, Sri Ramakrishna himself has shown the way. The beginning, because you can say all these are all part of disciplines towards meditation. Because no, meditation doesn't suddenly descend from the skies all of a sudden. So they all say, Thakur himself has shown that prayer, prarthana, the most powerful form of discipline to start with. That is because in prayer, we are able to kind of directly establish a link or converse with God or for Ishta or whatever it is. See, ultimately, in spiritual life, even if you talk about meditation, the highest goal is how can we keep everything away and descend or settle on that one particular thing. So initially, when we are bombarded by so many other distractions and so on and so forth, it's very, very difficult. But what happens in fact, for many people, meditation is the best prescription for going to sleep. They simply start sleeping the moment they close their eyes. So in prarthana, what happened? Normally, in fact, Mahaprabhu used to say during Durga Puja, keep your eyes open and pray to Divine Mother. Because it is sometimes 7 hours, 8 hours puja, young brahmachari, they may quite likely fall asleep. So, see, what happens when you pray like that, then there is an attempt to establish a direct connect with the Ishta or the object of our adoration or worship. So thereby, you are able to keep away many of the other intervening or intruding thoughts and restlessness and so on and so forth. Then slowly, probably next comes Japa or Japa Siddhanji is very much here, was established in Japa. So Japa is where it's more an intense practice But then this kind of the contact that we try to establish through prayer, it's not a contact at a very high transcendental level. But just as we establish contact at the human level with someone very dear and near, say our father, or mother, or sister, or spouse, or somebody, for a different purpose, in a very holy and wonderfully pure way, this type of relationship one tries to establish in prayer. So prayer is very powerful then. Then it goes to japa. And from there, they say ultimately one can practice this meditation. That's why our mothers have, they always used to say that it's final. Don't be in a hurry. That's not for the beginners. That's only at a very advanced stage. So the restlessness of the mind, these are all, as we explained earlier, they cannot go by merely suppressing them. Neither will it work, suppression will work, not just giving way would work. You need something else. Similarly, even if you change your place or location or go somewhere else, because again you'll be having the same mind only. So the only way is through regulation and control, and this is possible through such attempts as meditation, etc. And if you talk about the idea psychology of meditation, it's actually to cultivate a single thought. See, the mind is so restless. So initially they say amongst the various types of meditation, one of which is where you take an object and try to meditate on that, or Ishtadevata or some other idea. Even in Advaitic traditions, there are various ways in which one can imagine something and meditate. See, to channelize the restless mind with so many other thoughts, using a single thought, and then slowly with that, finally, of course, go beyond thought, go beyond everything else at the ultimate level. So this is, someone gives a very nice example. Supposing in the ocean, there are any number of waves constantly witnessed. But then if you imagine a huge wave in which all these other waves are completely subsumed, maybe it's something like when you think of this idea of meditation, trying to control the mind through one particular thought is something very similar to that. So generally, although there are maybe other systems also, is yoga and Advaita Vedanta or Vedanta, they seem to prescribe specific ways in which to approach the ultimate. Because with the yoga, it's clearly called as a meditation. Advaita Vedanta, they don't use the word meditation, but something, whatever happens there can also be stated as very close to meditation, the other systems. So the uninterrupted flow of thought towards its object, ultimately leading to that culmination of oneness or completely getting absorbed in that, that is the ultimate idea that's practiced. So it is whether it's an external or an internal object, that has to be, the flow should be consistently toward that, and then it can be lead to higher and higher states of meditation, including samadhi, etc. Now in the Yoga Vedanta, the yoga schools, they prescribe, in every school there are preliminary disciplines. In yoga they say you have to, because you cannot simply straight away sit and meditate like that. They speak of yama, niyama, then this asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. These are, so by the dhyana you come much later. So again, these are all preliminary disciplines, so necessary, because with an impure mind, the restless mind, it's not possible to, however much one might sit, it will not be possible to concentrate or take the mind to deeper levels like that, which is the essence of ultimately meditation. Here what they say is, under this yama, ahimsa, satya, brahmacharya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha are the 5 disciplines which they talk about. So all these things under the yama, these are the things one has to practice. Each one is so important. because more and more you disengage yourself in the world through these practices. When you practice ahimsa, there are a lot of restraint, the krodha, etc., all that are lessened greatly. All these are all disciplines which make the mind calmer, make the personality better, so that you are able to ultimately meditate. Similarly, under the niyama, socha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara, pranidhana, these are all again very important disciplines. One has to, the cleanliness is so important, cleanliness of the body, the mind to the extent possible, at least constantly thinking this is what's necessary. And then contentment, because how each one of us can be explained for a quite a length of time, because each one is so important by itself. Dosha, to be contented. Why people suffer constantly in this world? Because we are not contented with what we have. What will be the situation? Whether the money or the family or the job or other things, or relationship, where we live, so many. Constantly we keep on complaining. So this santosha is also very, very important. And most importantly, tapas, austerity. Austerity is not necessarily one has to go to cave or Himalayas or anything. Wherever one is, austerity is so important. Through that, what happens when you deliberately do that? Then you restrain the senses, you restrain indulgence, desires are controlled, you become better, because the more and more we give way to desires, that will generate more desires in the mind, and ultimately the mind will become more restless. And such a mind cannot meditate at all unless there is a spiritual bent of mind. It's not possible even to begin any kind of intense or serious sadhana. When Gita says, "Nasti buddhirektasya natayuktasya bhavana achabhavatasya tatas asantasya kutasukam." Where is the sukha? Because ultimately everyone wants this sukha and dukkha nivritti. If you want happiness, peace of mind, and free from sorrow. So it's all, unless, see, these are all externally, when you discipline yourself, control your life, become that. So one hand you are practicing all these restraints. On the other side, then the mind becomes also fit to indulge in such spiritual practices like dharana, dhyana, etc. And that's how you can slowly go forward in the practice of meditation. So as well as yoga, Vedanta is concerned, they put it a little differently. They say that Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. These are the threefold approach to the Vedantic idea of meditation, or reaching the ultimate, or realizing the truth, or whatever one might call. First is again, similarly, they also prescribe a very important set of disciplines. They say that unless, at least in the ancient times, the study of Vedanta was not mere study of text, Sanskrit or grammar or anything. If you study Vedanta, means you are an aspirant fit enough to realize the highest truths of Vedanta. With your teacher, when you study, the teacher will also be like that, which is exceptionally a realized soul. And in turn, he would lead you to the ultimate. This was the basis, this was the approach towards Vedantic study. So they said that these four disciplines, without that, no aspirant, no student would be admitted. Namely, Nitya, Anitya Vastu Viveka, Iha Amutra Falabhoga Viraga, mainly Vairagya, Sharadmadi Sampatti, and Mumukshutva. Then each one, actually, if you go deep into that, each one is self-sufficient by itself. Supposing this one discipline, Nitya, Anitya Vastu Viveka, if only we have it in our life, probably we don't need anything else if it can be really practiced truly the way it is. Because ultimately, what is the life? What is the reason for sorrow? What is the reason for suffering? What are all the evils that we talk about? They can be completely brought under this one head, namely Nitya, Anitya, Vastu Vivek. What is so? And if we go back and if we think about our own lives, in the day, probably 99.99% of our actions relate to Anitya. Only 0.001% may be related to Nitya. So if that can be controlled, regulated, probably that's why when such a aspirant comes to a guru, just by the way the shastras are taught, just like that, the shishya, because of the hearing it from such person, they realize the highest goal. So once a person is prepared for that, the first is hearing hearing of the from the guru is really qualified about the truths. And then it's not just hearing, then going back and really doing the manthan or the churning, manana, again and again, what I have heard, what I have understood is really true. In so many ways, these are all very, if you see the Upanishadic story, etc. Simply someone was asked to go, I'm giving you so many cows, you go back and when they come back when we are thousandfold or whatever it is. So many of those disciplines, etc. Largely they relate to with this aspect, namely Varna, to go back and think deeply, what I've heard, what I've learned, what I've understood. And then once that stage is crossed, then it comes what is called the Nididhyasana, where actually in the Advaita Vedanta, they don't talk about any meditation, they don't talk about samadhi, they don't talk about any help like the from the when directly any faith or effort, all those things are all not talked about. You see that when you realize that ultimately the consistent, constant awareness that I am that Brahman, I am that Supreme Self, if that is unbroken and continuous, that's when the Nididhyasana really, we are established in Nididhyasana constantly, not even for a fraction of a second, the thought, the idea, again, these are all inadequate expressions like thought, etc. Idea that I am the Supreme Self constantly remains, then that is the level of, that also obviously can be clearly stated as some type of meditation that way. Although the process is different, the way that is practiced or the way the advocate is different. So these are some of the two basic schools idea about meditation. And of course, ultimately, as we said earlier also, one has to practice it. Apart from whatever the discipline that yoga schools or Vedanta, they all practice also, prescribe largely to do this cleansing, purification. The mind should be purified, should be free from the desires, vasanas, all those things which have accumulated over several births and in this life also. So when we turn a new leaf, do all that, then only one becomes an aspirant fit enough for these type of sadhana, and through that one can ultimately realize that state of meditative awareness where one is constantly with that idea, with that awareness that I am that supreme, where one really realizes true nature of oneself. And that is the kind of goal of meditation. Again, if there are any questions.
We have time. 5 minutes can ask a question, and then 4 o'clock we will have some tea break till 4:30, and then Swami Atmapriyanji will be giving his talk on, as I mentioned earlier, the higher aspects of the mind, that is awakening of the buddhi. So he'll be focusing on that topic. But before that, and all are requested to come back sharply at 4:30, so that we can start the talk on time. So you can ask.
In the West, we often say meditation. In India, we say dhyana. Are they exactly the same or are they different?
Yeah, meditation in English, when you say meditation,
Please repeat the question for the online viewers.
yeah, he asked whether in India we say dhyana and here we say meditation. Are they the same? Meditation is perhaps the closest translation that's possible for the word dhyana, because see, there is nothing separately for dharana and all that. So all put together, they also one expression, one word they use is meditation. But dhyana is the it cannot be exactly translated, but it's closest. That way, meditation is the closest word they could do for that. Yes, please.
Yeah, my question is, we were telling that we have to control of the desires and purify our mind, and then only actually the next step would be meditation. But common people like us, we are always controlled by desires and vritis. Can we not still start meditation, which might actually ultimately guide us to calm ourselves, calm our mind, and also control our vritis?
Yeah, see, her question is, I said that unless one has reached certain level of purity, free from restless and so on, it's not really possible to meditate or cannot reach the higher levels of meditative awareness. So she's asking common people like us, we are constantly beset with the desires and so on. Can we not start the practice? And through that itself, lessen our desires and so on. Yes, actually, if you wait for the desires to completely kind of dry out and then we start, maybe in the whole life we may not be able to do it. One can certainly and should begin, rather, should begin. But then there should be a conscious effort to rid ourselves of our desires and other undesirable elements in our personality. There should be a very conscious effort in that direction also. Otherwise, sometimes when people try to sit for long hours like that, trying to forcefully control their mind and all that, that can lead to other problems. Because that kind of the fears and brute approach to meditation may not really work. That's why I said mother and others, they always used to advocate a lot of this idea of prarthana, prayer, because it's much simpler and the side effects, negative side effects are definitely not there, where you directly try to commune with your Ishta object of worship in a very friendly, spontaneous, loving way. That's really different. But meditation, where when you simply try to set and control the mind, and if the mind is, on one hand, it is full of other desires and other, it can lead to complications. So one can certainly begin, but there should be very conscious effort to remove or rid ourselves of the other problems, difficulties, impurities, etc. That should be there simultaneously.
We have time for one question. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm coming back to that. Okay, thank you, Maharajji, for answering my question. So does that mean the calmness and the divinity that we try to invoke through meditation, so that should trickle down to our life, our day-to-day life, that should become like a system, like a virtue in our life. So 15 minutes of meditation, I inculcate a lot of calmness and I connect with the divine. And the moment I come out of my meditation, I should not go back to how I was. So slowly that should trickle down to our day-to-day life. It should become part of our day-to-day life.
Yeah, she says the calmness that we experience in meditation, when we go out and indulge in other activities, it should permeate through all that. Of course, it depends upon what's our engagement beyond meditation. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we are not able to meditate properly. Suppose the whole day we are completely engaged in very rajasic, restless activities running around. Suddenly you cannot sit and meditate. It will lead you nowhere. So that's why certain amount of prescription. When mother says, when you sit for meditation, don't straight away start. Think what was the state of your mind previous day, how is it today, compare its condition, and so on and so forth. So that's why I said, unless there is a conscious effort to change your life in that direction. See, first of all, if you really understand why we need it, what is the need for meditation in our life? Because we feel we lack something somewhere else, maybe lack of peace, lack of contentment. We are full of sorrow, suffering, other problems, deprivation, some death, and all that. So when we seek a solution to the problems of our life, when we deeply believe that this might help us in that direction, consciously we should make efforts to reorient or reorganize our life also in such a way. Then only it's possible to reap the benefits of meditation through other activities. So it's a mutually supporting system. On one hand, we constantly try to improve our lives, make it really meditation worthy, so to say. And similarly, after meditation, if it is that way, if you are developing, probably it will again percolate in your other activities also, the way you deal with people, the talk to people, your engagement, your participation. It will probably remove some of the unwanted elements of the life also. It's possible. But then there should be a conscious effort in both directions. I think last is wanted to ask something. Yeah.
Hare Maharaj.
Just really, I want to understand like sukha nivriti and how that differs from like say mumukshutva or like a desire for a higher form of ananda.
Dukkha nivritti.
So sukha nivriti.
No. Sukha prapti. Sukha nivritti. No. You have sukha. Dukkha nivritti and sukha prapti. Sukha nivritti means meditation would land you in sorrow.
Yeah, you can ask. No, his question, you're not answering.
No, he said sukha nivritti.
Okay.
Sukha nivritti is.
No, that's okay.
What do you want, brother? What is your question then? Are you going to reword it?
I guess is yes, please. Thank you. Is sukha prapti the same as a desire for liberation or moksha, or can it also be like lower forms of sukha in the world? And what's the difference really?
Yeah, see, the desire for the highest is also a desire. Desire for Rasagulla is also a desire. But qualitatively, they are quite different. So, Sukha Prapti, largely because you will be that kind of an approach, that kind of participation, that kind of a discipline, sadhana, etc., would keep your mind happy, satisfied. So, that doesn't mean that whatever we want would all come. See, when the mind is really flowing towards something higher, it would disengage itself from many of the participatory things in the existential world. So obviously, you will feel satisfied. You need not really engage yourself in all that. Immediately, see, supposing there are so many items of food. One thing is, try to eat as much as possible, suffer stomach problem, go to doctor and things like that. Otherwise, yes, even if you have a little, it's okay, it's the same. After all, so many sweets, ultimately, what is going to be the big difference? So, through all that, you get that state of mind where the mind is very easily satisfied with whatever is there in the existential world. So, thereby, there will be that sukha, sense of happiness. Because, sense of happiness is not that from today I have, say, 1 million pounds, unless I become like Ambani or Adani or something, I don't have sukha. No. The sukha prapti is mainly the mind becomes easily satisfied in the existential world with whatever. When Sri Krishna also says yoga kshema mahamyam, doesn't mean that he will make you super rich or give whatever you want. He will give you such a state of mind that you will usually be satisfied with very simple things, ordinary things. Then the mind is in a state of happiness. Because you see, normally we feel happiness is linked to the amount of satisfaction of desires. That's normally understood as happiness. But if your level of seeking satisfaction of desire itself is greatly reduced, then in a very simple way you become happy. Then your life is full of happiness. Of course, the dukkha nivritti is because you clearly understand the impermanent nature of the world. It is so clearly understood that because after all our dukkha relates to death, pain, illness and so on. These are the things. Suppose you understand this body is absolutely impermanent, it's not worth caring about at all. When that comes, that would come with a higher awareness, higher understanding. Then you don't care. Oh, okay, body, yes. When I say, I'll ask the doctor, he give the medicine, it's done. Doesn't mean that we will not get treated or anything like that. The mind will not be constantly harping on that or thinking about that again and again. So we suffer, anything happens, we suffer more through the mind than through the actual bodies. That's why saying why some people with 100 degrees temperature also they are able to do everything. And someone even at the 98.6, they need blankets and so on. They have to lie down for several hours. It's more a state of mind. So when you develop that kind of attitude, then everything you are able to accommodate, take it into your stride. Oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter. That's how you get this dukkha nivritti also.
Thank you. Yes.
So we'll break up now for about half an hour. So 4:30, all of you come just a few minutes before 4:30 because as I announced earlier, Revered Swami Atmapriyan Maharaj will be speaking on a very important theme. So please be present and all of you can use the space in front so that people when they come, they don't disturb others. Try to be as much as possible. Yeah. In the front, use the spaces in the front so that people who come later.
Announce for online audience also.
Yeah, I already put in this. I already put in the chat. So.
Rejoin in 30-40 minutes. I put it on.
For those who are online, you can rejoin after 30 minutes because there is a tea break here. There is a tea break, so we'll come back sharply at 4:30. So the online audience or the online listeners are advised to log in again after half an hour.